Hi, everyone. My name is Cassondra Eng. I'm from Carnegie Mellon University, and I'm so excited to share this presentation on the optimal amount of visuals promotes children's comprehension and attention and eye tracking study with my co-authors Emma Gershik in the Department of Psychology, Kalpa Anjar in the Department of Computer Science, Dr. Carrie Godwin from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and Dr. Anna Fisher, also from Carnegie Mellon. Learning to read is crucially important because reading provides a gateway for other learning. Poor readers tend to perform poorly in other subjects because reading and understanding the material is a challenge. They also often have low opinions of themselves and their abilities, and many times they feel isolated in believing that everyone else can read and behavioral problems can surface. Yet, according to the National Assessment of Educational Progress, only 36% of fourth graders are actually reading at grade level, and only 17% of fourth graders who qualify for free lunch are reading at grade level. There are many factors that can affect the acquisition of reading skills, such as decoding, neurodevelopmental disorders, processing speed, but the factor that I'm focusing on is attention. This is the ability to selectively attend to task-relevant information, suppress extraneous irrelevant information, and monitor competing demands and maintain focus. What I would like to emphasize is that attention is a competitive process, meaning that only a subset of sensory input can actually be selected for further processing, and attention to one thing leaves less available for others. News and media are crowded with stories of technology having negative impacts on children's attention. But the reality is there isn't enough evidence yet. Research on the effects of technology often lags behind the development of technology itself. So we need more carefully controlled studies on the effects it has on children's development. This is especially crucial because 80% of top-selling apps in the education category target young children. On average, children spend almost 3 hours daily with screen media, probably even more now due to school closures because of the COVID-19 global pandemic. And 98% of children live in a home with a mobile device, even children from low socioeconomic households due to decreasing costs. And ebook sales are growing at an exponential rate worldwide. Several studies have shown that attention predicts academic achievement throughout school years. For example, this is a longitudinal study conducted by the US Department of Education that analyzed data from over 1,300 schools on children's attention-related behaviors and reading achievement. On the y-axis are scaled scores of reading assessments. And as you can see from the graph, the children with less developed attentional control, the children who are rated as never paying attention in the classroom, not only have lower reading assessment scores in kindergarten, but this pattern is persistent with time, and you see it continue with development into first and second grade. So given these individual differences exist, can we design ebook materials that are especially useful for children with less developed attention? Children's earliest experiences with reading materials, like ebooks, are closely linked to their reading skills. Many storybooks include not only text, but also illustrations. Now, illustrations in books serve important purposes. They can establish the setting, define characters, contribute to text coherence, but several book designs also integrate colorful, extraneous illustrations or decorational embellishments to make products more attractive and marketable. Extraneous meaning they are non-essential to understanding the narrative. For example, in this bottom picture, you read the text that is about Alfie's mom baking cookies and Alfie the alligator loving cookies. Yet there are these colorful salient cars unrelated to the text that could potentially be distracting for children. So the question is, do extraneous details in storybooks inadvertently induce attentional competition, and do these illustration designs help or hinder learning? Current research would indicate that these extraneous, unnecessary details would actually hinder learning, or this idea that when it comes to learning, less is more. In the learning sciences, this is known as the Coherence Principle, and within the text processing literature, this is known as the seductive details effects. theorized that extraneous details create a split attention effect, in which the learner's attention is divided between looking at entertaining visuals on one hand and relevant content on the others, overloading working memory and leading to less learning. Less is more. This idea of less is more enhances learning has been found in a variety of educational settings, in online lessons, in textbooks, in lectures, and even in classroom settings, and more recently, in digital storybooks. So this is a study I published with Carrie Godwin and Anna Fisher, in which first and second grade children read a commercially available book and a streamlined condition in which extraneous illustration details were removed. And what was found is that with the removal of extraneous illustration, children learn significantly more. So this is a paired box plot showing that with the removal of extraneous illustration, children's comprehension scores were significantly higher compared to the standard condition. And using an eye tracker, children also looked away from the text significantly less while reading in the streamlined condition. To give you a visual, these are recordings of children's eye gaze patterns. So this is a child reading in this commercially available standard condition in which extraneous and relevant illustrations are intermixed. And this is another video of a child reading in the streamlined condition in which extraneous details are removed. So you can see that children are looking away from the text significantly less in the streamlined condition. And interestingly, there was a negative correlation for children in both first and second grade, and that the more a child looked away from the text while reading, the more their comprehension decreased. But there are a few limitations to this study. One, there is no independent measure of attention, so it's unclear whether children's gaze shifts away from the text are indicative of children attempting to use the illustrations as a strategy to help determine the meaning of unknown words, or if these gaze shifts are actually indicative of resolving attentional competition. There is also no inclusion of a condition with no illustrations, making it impossible to estimate the value of including illustrations in ebooks for beginning readers. Third, there was no measure of book enjoyment to examine whether removing extraneous illustration details may affect children's motivation. So to address these limitations, we preserved ecological validity again by having children read a commercially available book from the Hooked on Phonics series, also known as the #1 Learn to Read program. 117 first and second grade children were recruited from in and around Pittsburgh. They were tested individually by hypothesis blind research assistants, and the study used a randomized block design. So children were actually blocked by reading proficiency level, grade, school, and then within each block, children were randomly assigned to read one of 3 book conditions: a standard commercially available condition with text, relevant, and extraneous illustrations, a streamlined condition in which extraneous illustrations were removed, and a text-only condition with no illustrations. To preserve ecological validity, children were asked the 6 open-ended reading comprehension questions provided by the book manufacturer after reading. And comprehension was scored by 2 condition blind research assistants as the percentage out of 16 total points. And what was found was that reading from a streamlined condition resulted in higher comprehension compared to reading from the standard and text-only condition. While children read, an eye tracker recorded their eye movements, and the main outcome measure of interest was gaze shifts away from their text as a proxy of attention allocation. This allowed us to examine how children allocated their attention while reading in each condition. And what was found was that compared to the standard condition, gaze shifts away from the text were significantly lower from the streamlined condition and text-only condition. When examining the association between children's eye tracking patterns and comprehension scores, it was found that children who frequently looked away from the text while reading in the standard and text-only conditions have lower reading comprehension scores, where in the streamlined condition, where only relevant illustrations were present, children's gaze shifts away from the text while reading were not negatively associated with their reading comprehension scores. After reading the ebook, children were asked how much they enjoyed reading the book using a 5-point Likert scale. And what this density plot shows is that similar high ratings of enjoyment for the standard and streamlined condition. While children's enjoyment rating of the text-only condition were evenly distributed, and the only book condition in which children rated the book negatively as not at all or not really enjoying it. Importantly, these findings indicate that removing extraneous illustrations does not hinder children's book enjoyment, as ratings of enjoyment between the standard and streamlined conditions did not differ significantly. To examine the association between eye gaze patterns and attention task performance, children were administered an independent measure of attention. The task contains 24 distractor objects comprised of either red squares or blue circles with smiley faces. The target was a red circle with a smiley face. If a red circle was present, participants were instructed to press one button, and if it was not, like in the second photo here, they were instructed to press another button. Performance on this task has been found to be related to executive function and attentional abilities, and it's also considered developmentally appropriate for children. And what was found is that as children's attention task performance decreased, looks away from the text actually increased, but only while reading in the standard condition. The association of children's eye gaze patterns while reading in the standard condition and performance on an independent measure of attention supports the hypothesis that children's eye gaze patterns while reading are associated with attention regulation skills. So in summary, this replicates findings of children exhibiting higher reading comprehension scores while reading in a condition in which extraneous illustration details were removed compared to the commercially available layout. A Goldilocks effect was also found. Children learn the most in the condition where illustrations were not too busy nor completely eliminated. Importantly, removing extraneous illustration details did not have a strong negative effect on enjoyment. And based on the correlation between eye gaze patterns and attention task performance, gaze shifts away from the text are due to increased attentional competition. One limitation is that it's unclear whether the effects of extraneous illustrations on reading comprehension may change with age. So we're currently exploring this question by collecting data from a sample of third grade children. We hypothesize that the inclusion of extraneous illustration details will have a greater negative effect on the comprehension and attention on first and second grade children compared to older children who are more proficient readers and also have better developed attention regulation. So this study overall highlights the importance of considering attention when designing ebooks for beginning readers and points to a malleable, cost-effective, and easy to scale general principle to optimize the design of reading materials to enhance learning for children. In my last slide, I would like to acknowledge my advisor, Anna Fisher, and our lab, the interdisciplinary research team that made this research possible, the Institute of Education Sciences, and the National Science Foundation for funding this research. And finally, the children, parents, and educators who made this project possible. And now I will give myself a round of applause.